Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll give it a few minutes, or at least 1 minute, for everyone to make sure they have their audio working and everything. And then we will start. Hi, everyone. As I said before, we're giving it a minute so everybody can join. In the meantime, do let us know in the chat who you are, from where you are joining, and any other thing you want to share. Then, yeah, it's great to know who's in the room. Great. So that minute has passed. We're starting now. Thanks, Jess. So hi, everyone. I really hope you're having a great day so far. And to, let you know, we're here to discuss the state of play of local energy transitions across Europe. So how towns and cities are pulling their powers to deliver energy as a public good, and which municipal strategies can turn the climate and energy crisis around. Because to make the energy transition work for the whole of society, a growing number of European municipalities are putting residents over revenue. So what can we actually learn from them? Which public policy interventions have proven most effective to develop renewables, reduce energy poverty, and cut insufficient use? And also, how can local authorities overcome the serious challenges that energy markets and privatization has been posing? So to give some background, as surely some or many of you know, this webinar brings you the prime insights of mPOWER. This concluding Horizon 2020 project enabled peer learning, in-depth research, and best practice mapping among over 100 European municipalities. So do check out the chat for more info about mPOWER. And to briefly introduce myself, I'm Lavinia Steinfort of the Transnational Institute, TNI. And for over 4 years, I've been working on the mPOWER project, where I got to know all the amazing speakers you'll be hearing from today. So let me now share the format of this webinar. Let's see. Yeah, there you have the slide. First, we'll hear from Rowan Mataram. Then we'll dive into the 3 energy transition stories of Piet Zelen, Zoran Kordic, and João Encarsanao. Then you will hear from Helen Trail and myself. And after that, we hope to have a little bit of time for a short Q&A. But let's see, we have much on the table today. So do put your questions and comments in the chat so the speakers know what you want to discuss. And before we start, if you would like to tweet about the event, please use the hashtag #MPowerStrategies, which is also in the chat. Can we get the slides back on? Wonderful. Yes. So let me introduce our first speaker. Rowan is a sustainable cities strategy and process lead at Platform London. She has developed projects and campaigns within the New Economy movement, trade justice movement, on decoloniality and racial justice in the environmental movement. And now she has found her new home with work around energy justice and the green energy transition. So Rowan, can you tell us a bit how municipalities have been democratizing their energy systems and building public community collaborations for the benefit of a just transition, and also how peer learning is key to spread and support similar practices around the continent?
Thanks, Lavinia. Yes, I can do. So in the past 4 years that this project has been running, we've had a global pandemic, an energy crisis, and a burgeoning cost of living crisis, all of which, some of you might have noticed, are still ongoing. Importantly, all of these crises are linked explicitly to the cause of climate breakdown, the systems of extraction, exploitation, and consumption of resources from our planet. Next slide, please. Looking directly at our privatised energy systems, it is increasingly vital that we join the dots between the systems in which we live, such as ownership models, physical infrastructure or equity of access to renewable and secure energy sources, and the points at which these systems are no longer working for us. Next slide, please. Enter mPOWER. In the mPOWER project, we've been focusing on clean, fair, and democratic municipal energy transitions. At a time that has felt very fraught, the leadership that we've seen across the EU has served to inspire us at every stage. We have focused on public and community-owned energy projects because this is where we have seen the greatest responsibility and care towards the citizens that these projects serve. These projects create new energy systems that are better able to serve people and planet. Next slide, please. Energy poverty, rising energy tariffs, and lack of democracy in our energy systems have been problems long before the past 4 years. As I and other speakers in this call will share, municipalities have been leading the way for decades in finding ways to use the energy transition not only to realise a clean energy future for generations to come, but also as a way to ensure local renewable energy supply, bolster local economies, and further democratic engagement and trust with local authorities. Next slide, please. To illustrate some of the core values of mPOWER, I'm now going to share with you some of the fantastic work that some of our participants and the case studies that we've researched have been doing to secure just, clean, and democratic energy transitions across Europe. Next slide, please. If you're in this webinar and afterwards you're keen to learn more, then we turned all of our course content from mPOWER Digital, which was our online peer learning program, into a self-led course. You can find the link in the chat. So I'm going to start off by talking about Niš from Serbia. So in Niš in Serbia, as in many countries in Eastern Europe, the local government have always maintained ownership of their energy system. This has meant that they can actively make their own decisions and take action towards decarbonisation and tariff management. As part of an overhaul of the energy tariff system in 2013, they decided to change tariffs to be based on usage, a decision that could initially appear to be non-controversial. However, as we are seeing across Europe with other schemes such as heat pump installation, these measures must come alongside retrofit measures to ensure that consumption and therefore bills do not increase. The change in tariffs further entrenched energy poverty and led to widespread discontent, protests, and overall mistrust of their local government. As a result, the local authority in Niš came together with residents to realise a democratic process to find a solution. The outcomes were a citizens' organisation that represents city dwellers and a commission for price change approval. The group also sits on the supervisory board of the municipal heating company. This new democratic structure has empowered the municipality's capacity to drive the local energy transition forward for everyone's benefit. Now on to Plymouth, which you can see on the slides. So in Plymouth in the UK, the City Council created a public-public partnership with a local community group to establish Plymouth Energy Company, also known as PEC, a community-based cooperative. This project is owned by and run for the community and seeks to increase local ownership of energy infrastructure and undertakes projects to support households that are excluded from the energy system through fuel poverty. After great success, they set up their sister organisation, PEC Renewables. This cooperative installs and manages renewable energy generation schemes in Plymouth for the benefits of the community. By establishing locally owned infrastructure, the money that citizens spend on their bills is reinvested into their local community. The project has been a huge success, not only for citizens, but for the local council in activating a person-centred energy transition. Sorry, the last slide, please. The one behind with the yellow. So now to Wolfhagen in Germany, which has long been used as a way of exemplifying the benefits of remunicipalisation. For those who are not familiar with this term, it refers to towns and cities that reclaim a public service because of failing privatisation. Wolfhagen was a pioneer in taking municipal action to remunicipalise their energy infrastructure, having already established a new local energy company in the 90s. In 2012, local engineers and politicians came up with a plan to remunicipalise the energy grid after noticing that the contract with the municipal operator E.ON was about to expire. They won and established a citizens' energy cooperative, which alongside funds from the German government funded a wind farm power plant and a solar power plant. They've also have a biogas plant from a cooperative of about 34 farmers. All of this collective action meant that the city did not have to turn to big private investors, and profits were reinvested for public benefit. The yearly profit brought more affordable tariffs, led to a near doubling of the number of staff, started funding the town's kindergarten and an electric bike scheme. After Wolfhagen's win, hundreds of German towns and cities started reclaiming the energy grids and setting up municipal energy providers. Next slide, please. As you will see from these examples, the energy transition is so much more than a technical revolution. It is an opportunity to facilitate the social and ecological well-being of people and the environment for generations to come. Next slide, please. mPOWER's strength has come from the amazing local authorities who have participated. Peer-to-peer learning has been a core tenet of our work. We've created opportunities to problem solve, share learnings, and come together to discuss and overcome barriers, with the hope that we have provided some capacity to ensure more ambitious energy transitions across the board. Indeed, in a survey addressing overall experiences of mPOWER, the overwhelming majority of participants reported that they had either created or updated their citywide climate plans since participating in the project, and half indicated new community energy projects within their cities or policies to support the growth of community energy projects, or had plans to retrofit new buildings to increase energy efficiency. Next slide, please. A key learning and reflection that has come up time and time again is the challenge and importance of democratic engagement in this work. Who is the energy transition for, if not for the people who consume and use energy? Democratic engagement ensures solutions are people-centered, long-lasting, and holistic. As policymakers or engineers, it can be easy to think of one-size-fits-all solutions. As we will go on to share, these solutions often fail to meet the nuance of the problem and people's day-to-day realities. Democratic engagement is a way of ensuring that these realities are understood and solutions meet everyone's needs. As Manfred Schaub, an engineer who was a key instigator in the energy transition in Wolfhagen, shared, the most important factor of the energy transition is getting people working together. Not everything that is technically possible to realise will be possible if people don't participate. Thanks.
Thanks, Rowan. That was really rich to have this tour of how municipalities are successfully democratizing their energy system in practice and what others can do as well. So let me now hand over to Piet Zelen, who is the chairman and initiator of Energy Kronenberg, so Energie Kronenberg in Dutch, a citizen collective that works together with the Dutch municipality Horst aan de Maas. Energy supply and sustainability have always been very important to him. Back in the 70s, he stood on the barricades against nuclear power. He wants to make his home, campsite, and cat boarding house as sustainable as possible, and together with other residents, also the village where he lives. So Piet Zelen, you have been a very active participant in the mPOWER learning streams. So can you share with us how Energie Kronenberg has been working with Horst aan de Maas to bring the whole population on board to start electrifying all the households in your town? And also, it would be nice to hear what mPOWER has brought to this process.
Okay, thank you. I'm replacing Sonja Kolen, the official of the municipality. We work a lot with together. My English is not that good, but I will try. The first slide, I can see the slides. Oh, yeah, Kronenberg is one of the 16 villages of the municipality of Horst aan de Maas. 3 bigger villages, and the rest of them are small rural villages, and Kronenberg is one of them. Next slide, please. In 2014, we started our initiative, very small, with a question. We asked the village, are there people who want to discuss and be involved thinking about in a group about energy transition? And after that resulted a few years later in a group you see here on the picture. And then the initiative really started. Kronenberg has 1,150 inhabitants and 450 households. So it's not that big, but we do our best. Next slide, please. In the last few years, we've done a lot of actions. Some are very practical, organizing excursions. We went to Saarbeck in Germany, we went to Loppersum, in the north of the Netherlands, where the gas is coming from, and now there are big problems. And yeah, we do our best to create awareness to all the people, and that is a very long and difficult way. But we have the actions we do, but also we invite people who have taken actions to put a shield on their house that they are joining our initiative. Just a moment. We also had some actions for people to enjoy the purchasing energy efficiency measures, solar panels, isolating their homes, replacing their lights into LED light. I hope that's a good word. And in 2018, we had a very big study how to become energy neutral, because our goal was to be energy neutral in 2030. And next slide, please. We had that study together with the municipality, and we searched for 3 scenarios: all electric, heat net, and hydrogen. And after that, the outcome was all electric. So in a rural village like Kronenberg, with no natural sources in one way or another, only all electric was the option, and also the most cheapest. But then we had a new problem, because all electric means that all the people have to solve their own problem. You can do that collective. You can only try to stimulate them to do it. And the municipality is always supporting us very hard, giving us subsidies. The officials, there are 1 or 2 officials who also join our meetings, and we work very strong together. Next slide, please. In the last 2 years, I'm not sure, but I think the last 2 years, we came in contact with mPOWER, and they helped us a lot in our communication strategy. We have a magazine. You can see it on the slide. That's the 3rd number, and every household in the village gets that magazine, and we tell the people what we are doing. So we had help from mPOWER to realize that, and also we also had some examples from elsewhere who were useful for us. And in May, we organized what we called the Energetic Week. That's also a way to try to involve people, to interest people in what we are doing. And we think sometimes it must be serious, but sometimes it must also be fun. It has to be fun to join in the transition, not only too problematic. On the poster, you see a very famous band from Kronenberg. Looks like the Beatles, but they aren't. And on the 7th of May, we had a sustainable, people could visit sustainable houses in the village. We went through the village with about 15 people on bikes, and the people of that home told the other ones what they were doing. and that was a very interesting afternoon. Then we went to the primary school.
I'm sorry, Pete, can I please ask you to slowly round up if it's okay with you?
Okay, okay. We also had a pub quiz, and in that week, the last day, the 14th, we asked Frans Timmermans if he would have a short, inspiring speech for us, and he did. So we were very proud that we, in the opening of the pub quiz, we could introduce Frans Timmermans, who was, proud what we are doing. And then the last question: will Kronenberg be the first energy neutral village in the Netherlands? I don't know. I know only one thing, that if we didn't do what we do, there would be it would be sure that we didn't reach that goal. So every step we take is a step closer to that goal, and it's a long journey, enjoying all the people, and I think I have to stop now.
Thanks, Pete. That was a very nice story you shared. Very important to hear really how this journey has unfolded, and what the collaboration with the municipality has meant for the energy citizen cooperative, or collective, I should say. So let's move on to our second story on energy transition. So this will come from Zoran Kordic, who is a passionate and impact-driven entrepreneur with 10 years of professional experience in community energy and social entrepreneurship. For many years, he has been leading the energy cooperative ZES, from a startup phase to a recognized community energy business in Croatia, EU, and the Western Balkan region. In this capacity, he works in close partnership with the municipality of crises, who he will be actually representing here. So Zoran, as a contributor to the mPOWER project, as a participant, even as a facilitator, can you tell us how the Croatian municipality of crises has been collaborating with ZES towards designing, managing energy sustainability projects that specifically benefit the local community?
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon from Zagreb, from Croatia. As Lavinia said, I'll talk on partnership and the process of basically establishing local energy cooperative in city of Križevci. So how it all started, basically when the new local government came into force, they kind of immediately adopted a very ambitious plan for the municipality to become energy neutral. So basically very similar to the case that we just heard previously. By the year of 2030, the goal is to become energy neutral for the municipality of Križevci, which is rather very small municipality in the north of Croatia. We as ZES kind of entered this partnership, and basically we started the process of shaping that idea and shaping the roadmap basically for the municipality, how to get there. And by that time we also started the mPOWER, and it kind of very nicely fitted into the whole process, since we were like at the source of the whole different models how municipality and cooperative can work together. What we came up to was the idea of establishing local cooperative. We discussed many models, many cases from Europe. So, for example, would municipality become the founding member of that cooperative, or would we keep it outside of the cooperative? And several like other very interesting and different topics. At the end, we really managed to get the statute, to get the form, and to get the citizens, which is the most important thing into it, since the government will from the start was to have a very just and very inclusive process of getting towards this overarching goal of energy neutrality. And soon after, basically, the first projects came into force. So solar sunny roofs of Križevci started in 2018 still with the help of ZES as a national energy cooperative, but soon after, like these local energy cooperative basically took over the whole initiative and now became the main partner of municipality of Križevci in going towards the goal. And just to say that at the moment, Croatian Power Utility, which is of course has the monopoly in Croatia on distribution system, but also on the projects level. They wanted basically to buy the big solar power plant project from the municipality, and because of all of that, municipality said there's no way that they're gonna just sold the land, but rather that they want to basically do it through the citizens. So the local cooperative became the huge actor in that project and in that whole process. So it is decided that at least 20% of the whole projects would be needs to be offered in the ownership of the local cooperative and the local citizens, which is like very big thing in Croatia, since we do not have these kind of models, these kind of cases. So to make it short, with the help of mPOWER, we really kind of see the pathway. We see the different examples from Europe, and I believe that we managed to construct a good local energy cooperative which can be a force for the future.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Zoran. It's super interesting to hear why you chose for the cooperative model, and also how you're now developing with the city in terms of the communication with the utility and how that will work out in the future. I would be very interested to follow this development, because I think this is very significant for other countries in Europe as well. So let's now move on to the third municipal transition story from João and João and so João is an electrotechnical engineer who works with the energy agency Energia. He's responsible for managing various European projects, as well as the Southern Sustainability Observatory in the Porto metropolitan area, which is an energy management tool for municipal equipment and infrastructure. And he's also in charge of the Covenant of Mayors initiative in Vila Nova de Gaia. João, you have also been really active in the mPOWER project, and thanks for that. So could you talk about how Energia has been partnering with a number of municipalities in Porto metropolitan area to very concretely build a joint and just energy transition, and also what mPOWER has contributed to these developments?
Many thanks for this invitation and for the opportunity to show what we are trying to do here in Vila Nova de Gaia and at the south of the metropolitan area. So Energia is an energy agency that operates 6 municipalities as associates. And within these associates, of course, we do several things: Covenant of Mayors, energy efficiency plans, the monetization of lighting. We do several studies for the implementation of photovoltaic systems. We manage European Horizon projects, and of course, nowadays we are developing several plans for the energy transition. That's where mPOWER allowed us to establish a new concept. So within the participation on the mPOWER Activate and Exchange, we came across with several ideas, like the ones that we have seen previously, where citizens were engaging within cooperatives. So within the idea of the renewable energy communities, we start to see that the municipalities could engage with the citizens, and then allowing the citizen and the municipalities to have a different approach to the problems that the city faces. That's where we saw some interesting things like the public tender process from ICLO, or the public civic partnerships on the mPOWER from Hale. So this allowed us to see from our perspective, from our own opportunities, how to reach to some new ideas. And also the mPOWER project allowed us to establish a more cooperative, a strong cooperation with Copernico, which is one of the most known energy cooperatives here in Portugal. And we try to develop several workshops in order to bring the citizens into this idea. What is the idea? It's a citizen cooperative, like most of the ones that we have seen in Europe. And our idea behind it is to promote implementation, of course, of renewable energy projects, mainly with the community perspective. Promote the management of the energy efficiency contracts of the public lighting. Nowadays, we are doing several modernizations of the public lighting and the lighting in the buildings, and we want to establish a performance contract. Within also the citizen cooperative, we want to promote more projects on renewable energy with the community. We want to promote the smart cities concept, and this is only possible when we are trying to obtain the public lighting network management, like the ones that we saw in the first example. And of course, nowadays we need to tackle energy poverty. So this is the way that we found on the citizen cooperative, like a vehicle to implement all these ideas and all these opportunities. So our main activities will focus on three aspects. First, financing. So financing through the public partnerships, for instance, or from citizens loans, for instance, ESCOs providers, and so on. So this is the main financing that we found for the cooperative. Then in terms of activities, what we want to do is, of course, promote the renewables, renewable energy communities, or citizen energy communities. For now in Portugal, there is only the possibility to implement renewable energy communities, but we are hoping to do it in the near future, the citizen energy community aspect. And for promote energy efficiency, being the street lighting, the public buildings, social housing buildings, or even private housing. So supporting the citizens to implement the energy efficiency measures needed for reducing the energy consumption, of course, of the households. So next slide, please. The main idea behind the cooperative for now and for us is, of course, to have a capital reinvestment on the community, being this the investment that the community does within the cooperative, within the several projects that the cooperative might develop. We can give an interest back to the community. So in order for the, so to say, the money being spent and being recovered within the community. That's the perspective of the cooperative, with the help of the municipality, of course, giving the possibility to create the cooperative. Next slide, please. So where we are. So the next slide for the last slide for my presentation is this one, what we are doing. So we start with mPOWER, we build an idea, we built the concept, and now we have a financing through the European City Facility for the development of the investment concept. So one of the associates made the the application in the name of the remaining applicants. And we are now doing this investment concept in terms of juridical and financing perspective analysis and viability. So that's where we are. And thanks to mPOWER, we managed to reach somehow to the cooperative. Many thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks, João, for sharing. Also how the new stage is looking with this initiative. I think that's very exciting. As so much work and struggle was put in to get to this situation. So we really hope to stay in touch, of course, with you and the other mPOWER participants, as these journeys are, of course, not ending here, but really need to have a lot more actions that we would like to collaborate on. So let's now move to Helen. Helen, to briefly first introduce you. Dr. Helen Trail is a research associate in urban transitions in the Adam Smith Business School at the University of Glasgow. Helen's research spans community gardening, urban food systems, and the ethics of sustainability in everyday life. She works on the mPOWER project as a researcher, exploring the state of European municipal energy transition and public ownership in the pursuit of economic democracy. And my apologies for speaking a bit too fast. Helen, as you have been researching the state of play of the energy transition, can you share with us the core enablers and blockages that need to be addressed for a more effective local and just energy future across Europe?
Yes, gladly. Thank you, Lavinia, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We've heard some really great examples actually from the different municipalities, and it's always great to hear that detail from the local case studies. What I'm going to do, just in the brief time I have today, is just zoom out a little bit and think a little bit about Europe as a kind of a continent, as an area, and thinking about the different kind of barriers and enablers that exist when we take that slightly broader view. So I'm going to draw on the research that we've been doing alongside the mPOWER project with my colleagues Andrew Cumbers and Neil Gray at the University of Glasgow. So I'm going to be drawing on a quantitative study from across Europe that we did of 96 municipalities that we followed up with 30 kind of telephone interviews. And that survey really gave us a baseline for understanding where people were in order to set up the peer learning that Rowan was talking about earlier. We've also done a bit of case study work building on that was actually hampered quite a lot by the pandemic. But you can see the places we went to written on the slide there. While I'm here, I also wanted to mention the research of our brilliant colleagues at the University of the Basque Country that I'll provide some links to at the end. They've been working very much with the municipal data that our project partners have been able to give us, and they've highlighted some really important difficulties in mapping energy systems, and some really important findings too about the links between the number of municipal staff and the capacity of municipalities to transition. But just for this very brief presentation, I'm going to focus mostly on the findings from that big survey, because I think they highlight some really big headlines that are important when we're thinking about municipal transition. Next slide, please. So the first thing, three main points we're going to make today. One is actually just about municipal ambition. One thing that is really clear from the survey, and I think clear also from this webinar, is the real enthusiasm at a local level to transition the energy system. So this graph here shows you the types of renewable energy that is being generated locally. And the number of respondents saying they were engaged in solar photovoltaics is over 80%. And again, you can see the biomass comes in second at just over 50% there. So actually, for me, the really great finding that we had was that only 8 of the 96 municipalities we spoke to had no experience of renewables generation. And I think this really does point to an ambition at a local level to be taking steps towards a net zero energy system. Next slide, please. When we begin to think about kind of enablers and blockages, though, one thing that becomes really important is to think about these uneven geographies, though, of municipal progress. This table on the left here comes from our publications, and one of the things that we did when we did that big survey was to rank municipalities. It's not a total ranking. This is a very select bunch of municipalities, and it's a slightly crude measure. But I think it shows a bit of an interesting pattern, right? Because what the table you can see there shows is the national distribution of the high-ranking municipalities. So you can see Germany had 6, Bulgaria had 1 in this kind of top 30. So only 1 municipality in the top 10 was in Southern Europe. And the top Eastern European municipalities, that Bulgarian one there, which was ranked 26. This is not a total ranking, but it does point to this real predominance of action towards energy transition in Northern and Western Europe. And this is a real enabling condition that we see in those kinds of countries where there is national support and lots of funding for the kind of transitions that we're talking about. And so this is a big enabler, and we can point to things like the impact of the financial crisis in 2008, subsequent austerity, but also longer historical geographies that are really important when we're thinking at the European level. That said, there are quite a lot of common blockages to energy transition at a municipal level. Next slide, please. This graph, I promise this is the last graph. This is also from our publications, and you can see that this is a graph that shows the number of municipalities saying that these were very significant constraints on them reaching their transition targets. And you can say the biggest bar on this chart is financial constraints. This is a very common thing when you speak to municipalities about the difficulties of achieving energy transition. A lot of it is financial. And we know that the scale of investment required for energy transition is huge. This isn't that surprising. But finance is also a technical problem. And although you can see here that lack of capacity or size or lack of skills and specialist expertise aren't ranking as highly as financial, when you start looking at the case studies and speaking more closely with the municipalities, you see how intertwined these kinds of ideas are. One thing that came up quite a lot was that when you talk about kind of EU level policy, there's this real emphasis on using the private sector, engaging with ESCOs, a real emphasis on private sector money. And that writing even the project proposals to access that money at an EU level requires this huge level of technical skill, which can be a real barrier for municipalities. From our qualitative research, we also see suggestions that national constraints, so like lack of support at a national level and a lack of local autonomy, can hold municipalities back too. So really the space that is given over to municipalities to take action is really varied depending on the country that they're acting within. But despite that, you can see some really inspiring examples from all sorts of municipalities of acting in novel and exciting ways. And I think we've heard some of those today. So just to summarize, you can show the last slide. This is a scary slide, I promise, because it's got so much text. But if you want access to any of the data or any of the findings from this is just showing you the publications from the mPOWER project. And if you want access to any of these, feel free to reach out to me if you can't get them online. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Helen. That was really, really important to hear in terms of how different elements are holding back municipal energy transitions in Europe, but how European municipalities are really doing their best to work within the limits they face. To continue, last week, TNI, together with the wider mPOWER consortium, actually published the Building Public Power report. And you can see the link to this in the chat, which featured lots of the learnings that were shared by the previous speakers. So now I will briefly go into a few more tools that the other author, James Angels, and I discussed in the publication with the hope that they assist municipalities to overcome the serious challenges that impede just transitions in Europe, but also very much around the world. So to go a bit back to where Rowan also started, the worsening energy crisis is leading to ever more volatile prices, from which private and multinational energy companies earn skyrocketing profits, while at the same time households and governments are footing the bill. This was the case before, and now it's even more, and with much more consequences. That's why we urgently need to get the right policies in place so that our power systems can start to put people's energy needs, essential energy needs first. So energy poverty was already a huge problem before today's energy crisis, but now many more millions have to choose this winter between food and a warm home. And in response, local authorities have come up with many interventions. Some were shared today to to share a few more, from prioritizing home retrofits of low-income families and working with anchor institutions to center people in energy poverty, to making sure that local solar is actually used to reduce the bills of households that live in economic or other forms of poverty. Now, to tackle energy poverty as its root, these valuable measures need to link up to a much more comprehensive public approach. And that's also what the research results and the engagements we had with municipalities showed us. So at the moment, European municipalities, together with citizen initiatives, are significantly restrained by having to compete with big energy companies in the market. And as a result, many local social energy enterprises that were committed to address energy poverty are going bust. This was before already the case in Denmark, Germany, but now also in the UK. So the competitive market approach goes at the expense of much needed policy coordination to align social, climate, and economic goals. And it also incentivizes public authorities to enter into very expensive public-private partnerships which further undermine their say over the particular energy infrastructure or service that from then on is in the hands of a private operator. Of course, this can be reversed which often has the banner of remunicipalization or deprivatizing energy services or infrastructures. But what was very clear in Joao's contribution is that communities actually have so much to gain from private partnerships, which can be called public partnerships. Also because larger skill generation and infrastructure beyond municipal borders, especially for bigger cities, will very likely remain necessary, because it's just really difficult to produce enough renewables to be completely self-reliant for big cities. Of course, for small towns and villages, this is a different story. And there's also the need for solidarity between these different sized municipalities. But with this dependence in mind that will remain a future in different places across Europe, we have to think of the utility that in many countries is still the backbone of the power sector by being in charge of electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. So it's absolutely key for municipalities to join forces together to make bigger energy utilities operate for the benefit of their residents. Because when they're corporatized or even outright privatized, it's really powerful to team up with citizen groups and trade unions to call for democratic public energy systems, so that this logic of competition can be turned into coordination and collaboration principles and practices. Such a comprehensive approach would ensure that the public, so including citizens, energy workers, social enterprises, and governments, have the joint capacity and social support to at last truly plan, develop, and implement a just energy transition across territories. So collaboration can also contribute to rural-urban solidarity. Especially big urban settlements have been dependent on rural lands and populations for their development. This is not just the case for fossil fuels, but also large-scale renewable energy production that the EU now pushes for in North Africa. But also when it comes to massive cobalt extraction in the DRC that electrifies European cars. So the EU energy transition strategy would really have to change course in order to stop colonizing countries and communities across the South to meet its energy needs, because this is depriving a global majority of energy transitions of their own. But that said, municipalities can make a significant contribution to more just outcomes in the global South by minimizing the needs for minerals, metals, and land. So for instance, by planning for high levels of public support and cycling lanes instead of private electric cars, this can really support energy sovereignty, to which I will speak very soon, but also retrofit and energy efficiency are of paramount importance, because by reducing energy demand here, in European municipalities, the energy transition is first much more feasible and significantly limits the grabbing of land and resources elsewhere beyond Europe, but also closer to home, as Helen pointed out, that there are very uneven socio-economic conditions in the EU. So this draws on the concept of energy sovereignty, which has been growing in popularity across Latin America and Spain, meaning that a public power transition would need to be developed in such a way that it respects people's territorial sovereignty and their right to define their own relationships to the energy system, making sure that residents should first and foremost control and benefit from the energy developments in their surroundings. And also, to make this very concrete, municipalities like Brussels, Barcelona, and San Sebastian have started applying this framework, asking for who and for which purpose energy is actually being produced, by developing policies that reduce energy use and also limit the indirect emissions that consumption within the city has caused elsewhere in the supply chain. So by replacing relationships of market competition with policies that enable collaboration and democratization, the well-being of one community will not have to go at the expense of another, but can actually improve well-beings across territories. So I will stop there. We have actually a bit of time for a Q&A. So first of all, thanks so much to all the speakers for really staying within their time. This is very rare, so thanks for that. I don't see any questions in the Q&A function. You can still put them in the chat, and then there can be written responses. But if this is the case, I would suggest that the speakers can have a minute, all of us have a minute to respond to the other contributions. And if you're speaking from a particular municipal or community energy project, it would also really be valuable to hear which policy changes on national and EU level you deem necessary and crucial for a better, faster, and truly just transition. So I think that would be really great if you could speak to that dimension as well. Yeah, now I will be silent again. Who wants to kick off with their final thoughts? Maybe Rowan, since it was a long time since you started. Would you be fine with that?
Yeah, I don't have so many final thoughts because I think that everybody's contributions have been so interesting. But I think the thing that really hits home time and time again is just the importance of bringing people together with engineers, with politicians, with community groups, all of these things. And that is the basis for the energy transitions that we want to see. And we hope that we've put that message across. Thank you.
Thanks, Rowan. In the meantime, we got a question from Tynette, who is asking about how to confront the regulations that make these big utilities very powerful, and government regulations that are both preventing and municipal initiatives. Any thoughts on that would be really important, as this is a big situation in many places. Who wants to follow on from Rowan?
I can do it. Yeah, here in Portugal, I think it's a similar thing. So the regulations, it's our own problem. So in order to develop the citizen cooperative, we have several legislations to see, and we need several lawyers. That's the truth. We need several lawyers to look into this situation, because when we are involving citizens and private sectors with the municipality, that is a problem. And if we want to create a cooperative where the municipalities engage, that's another big problem. Because if we are looking to the perspective of citizen cooperative being one municipality or several municipalities and several citizens in a joint mix of a cooperative, each one should have one vote. And our legislation is not saying that. So we need to engage the legislation and see if it's possible to overcome this one. And that's our main focus right now, because when we are looking to all the perspectives, all the opportunities that, for instance, I've mentioned, the perspective of managing the public lighting, developing energy renewable communities, and so on, we need to look into another perspective of a bunch of legislation. That's the truth. Then we need more lawyers in order to look into those legislation and bring them into the cooperative and see how all can be done within the cooperative. So yes, it's a democracy, but with a lot of legislation where the public has several barriers. That's the truth.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think what you shared also really touches upon the capacity issue, that so much capacity is important to deal with these regulations, and Helen also touched upon that. So as a suggestion, Helen, would you like to follow and share your thoughts?
Sure thing. I mean, yes, Tanette, absolutely. That's like this question of what do you do about the regulatory environment that tends to not favor the municipal transition. It's a really tricky one. I think where we see some hope across Europe and particularly actually even globally is where you see municipalities kind of coming together to support each other to find the space within the legislation, or joining together to lobby upwards. And like a lot of it is political and about getting that alignment between the different levels that allows you to take those steps. But yes, it is difficult. It's also global, right? So when you're talking about, you know, the big utilities are powerful in Canada, the big utilities are powerful across Europe as well, and across a lot of other places in the globe. So I think there's also just this big question about like, how do you challenge big power structures? But I think that even where there is a lot of power vested in that level, there is often room for small movement, even at a local level. And I think that's where, I mean, if you think about the UK, there is not a lot of support for municipal endeavours. Within the UK, there's a lot of red tape around what they are and aren't allowed to do. And so you see kind of novel attempts to work with the third sector to get around some of those rules. And Rowan mentioned Plymouth earlier. They're doing a lot of work that sort of sidesteps a lot of that regulation. So I suppose there's some creativity and some hope, but yes, it is a big one, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we also got an additional question from Guillermo, and I think it's very important to share that here, because they are asking about municipal local strategies to support people in energy poverty with these extreme hikes in energy bills. What can electricity retailers, municipal electricity retailers, energy communities, and no pay campaigns do on that front? So before I hand over to Piet and Zoran, let's also put the link of the best practice guides on tackling energy poverty in the chat, because our partner Carbon Co-op has done amazing work on this. And yeah, maybe we can see if there's still time to follow up on the question about utilities, because I think this is really a huge question that needs more attention. But first, Piet or Zoran, would you like to respond to all these issues?
Yeah, in the Netherlands, we had a few rounds for very big subsidies from the government. The outcome was that most of the projects who got money were big projects, most of them central heating. And in the last round, we also tried to get one of those subsidies. But our solution, as we investigated, was all electric. That's an individual solution. People have to find their own solution, isolate their homes, invest in a heat pump, and so on. And I hope that there is also some room for rural villages like Kronenberg, and there are a lot of them in the Netherlands and maybe elsewhere. Don't forget them. because you would be all we have to support those people also.
Yeah, for not every municipality to reinvent the wheel, but really stand together, share these experiences and yeah, new policies. So Zoran, would you like to come in now? Yeah, especially with the utility experience, I think if you want to share a bit more, that would be very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, the experience with utility is still ongoing, and it's still kind of mixed feelings about it, since even though there is the contract signed between the sides, it's still uncertain whether, you know, whether power utilities still would have the option to kind of exit this contract. So at the same time, we are like keeping some alternatives alive still in a case something went wrong. But I guess that if we find out the case which includes actually power utility into the whole model, then it should be really good model for application, since there is a whole bunch of other projects which utility is targeting with municipalities. So if there is some formula or some idea on how this can be done, then it will be much more easier to replicate it. And I would say the challenge that we are facing is related to public procurement. That's like really the public enemy, right? Number one, because apart from the cases that we've seen from the Western countries and municipalities from Belgium, for example, on how they did it and how they manage it, it's still kind of not possible. It's like when we come with that idea to our municipalities, especially with the people working on public procurement, it's like, oh my God, what's that? So we still need to find a model for that. And if we find the way how to utilize the citizens' participation into the projects, then it would make it much more like easier to scale up with municipalities and cooperatives partnerships. Yeah.
Thanks, Zoran. I think you really put the difficult area on public procurement out there, which is really important to do follow up work on together with all of you. So and yes, how to make the utility work for the population and the environment is, I think, something we are all concerned about. So Jess, can you put the last slides up? That would be great. Then we can close in a minute or so. So yeah, first, let me thank you. Let me thank the panelists for your brilliant intervention, but also my colleagues, Melissa and Jess, for the challenge. Thanks. So if you're interested in more municipal stories and best energy transition practices, do check out municipalpower.org and our social media you see here. So the mPOWER project has received funding from the European Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. And finally, for more such webinars and updates, do join the International Energy Democracy mailing list by sending a message to subscribe at energy-democracy.net. So to conclude, this webinar has been recorded. So if you registered, you will receive it and will also be put on the mPOWER website. So a really great day to all of you, and thanks for joining, and keep in touch.